Well, my name's Phil Volk, and I was in the U.S. Army from 1989 to 1997. And I got through the agent course and ended up re-enlisting in 93 to go to Hawaii. And just before I ETS'd from Hawaii, I started painting. As far as the PTSD, sometimes I have what's called fragmented flashbacks, and I have noticed that it doesn't do a whole lot to keep those down, but I've learned to try to kind of work through them better. I'm actually able to start to work through that a little bit as I'm working. I used to just shut down. Actually, I drank a lot. You know,
Patricia Gallegos, Patty. Everybody calls me Patty. And I went into the military in 1974. I went in delayed entry program, and then actually went into basic training in 75. Because at that time, women, would you please go away? Women were not allowed into the service academies or ROTC. So the only way you could get in as a officer was to go through what's called a direct commission program. So then I was stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland, and I was my specialty was military police. So I was with the 519th Military Police Battalion. Women in this age group just tended to keep their heads down and do their job and try not to make a fuss, try not to attract a lot of attention to themselves. And then when nobody ever complained about anything, even though stuff was going on for sure. And then, we just kind of got through it. I was glad to see later on when women started really standing up for themselves and saying, no, I shouldn't have been treated that way, or, that kind of thing. So I started my very first art class, which was in clay. I did that back in Maryland when I was still on active duty. And it took me a whole year, might even been 2 years, because I went in with this idea that I was going to make myself a set of dishes. So then I got into it and figured out how hard it was. And so I ended up making a set of really ugly dishes. The plates, nothing matched. But I used them for a long time.
I'm Don Roden, and I was in the Air Force for 22 years. I worked in aircraft maintenance, large aircraft, reconnaissance platforms mainly, for 18 years. Then they wanted to make me a B-1 crew chief, and I declined, and I became a staff advisor to our squadron commander for resources. Spent a lot of time at different places. I was at 4 years at Minot Air Force Base one day. Actually, it was just short of that. Then I went to Alaska for 2.5 years, and that's where I got into the reconnaissance platforms. And then I ended up at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska for 8 years, and the joke was that once you get off it, you never get off it. And so I volunteered to go to a little place out in the end of the Aleutian Islands called Shimya, where worked on a reconnaissance aircraft where we monitored Soviet ballistic missile tests just as the Soviet Union was collapsing. But I started wood turning when I was 8, and I just fell in love with it. You can be creative, and when something happens, you just work at reshaping in a lot of cases. And in most of those cases, when you're reshaping something, it turns out better than what you maybe have planned.
My name is David Allen Holding. I was born baby boy feather in the Seminole Nation, got adopted, My parents actually kept in touch with my birth family. I met my mom and them when I was 16, even though they were all told I died at birth, along with my father. So I was so surprised. After high school, I did the college and working, and decided to go with the Navy because I liked their structure and advancement organization a lot better than the other ones. The week of, or the week before, I was deployed to a ship or a station somewhere else. My first choice out of A school was Diego Garcia, double C duty, double pay. You get to choose your next station too. I graduated top of my class, so you get to choose where you go for that. From HSL 41, where I trained to work on helicopters, as Horskies, I was going to go out to a little helo squadron, part of a convoy with the bigger ships. The leg fractured the week I was supposed to leave, so I had to cancel that. Somebody had told me that the ship I was going to during war games got hit with a live round somehow and took out the AT berthing. My rate was AT. They don't have the AT rates anymore. So if I'd actually been on a ship and my leg had screwed up at that time, I would have been in the berthing, not playing the war games, and probably would be dead. Because my mind has a tendency of getting too many tracks going at one time, so I need something to help focus. And sometimes it's sitting down and drawing or poetry. I've done poetry and I've written some music. You know, it's basically that process of having to focus to create something specific. You know, gets my mind into it. So
I felt more like I wanted to just create from me. I want a little bit of myself, like in each painting. And in order to do that, I wanted to make them as like kind of personalized about like me as possible. And the automatism, the automatic drawing comes in handy because I do it, and that's the first step. The first mark I make on the canvas, or if I smear something on the canvas, and then all of a sudden a whole new world opens up to me. And then I can just kind of pursue wherever the canvas is taking me. I kind of let the canvas direct me into where I'm going. I don't ever try to take charge of a painting. I think that's the worst thing any artist could do, is try to take charge of a painting. For me, it's just letting it out on the canvas, however it comes, just like from the subconscious, you know.
So I left active duty and moved back to New Mexico, and didn't really have any place to go and do my clay work. But I had one bag of clay. I had a little bag of tools too, but I had one bag of clay. And I felt like if no matter how many times I moved over the next, 15 years or whatever it was, I'd haul that 25-pound bag of clay around. It was like if I let go of it, I was somehow letting go of my dream to get back into making clay. It's funny how the mind works, but I eventually did make some stuff out of that bag of clay. It was dried up like a brick by then, but
I like to say that trees are like people and people are like trees. You know, we all have an outer skin, and people can see that. But they don't see what's underneath. They don't see a lot of the hidden scars from trauma, from some kind of injuries that happened internally. And for me, whatever your art form is, it's you expressing what's inside and getting it out here and sharing it with the world. And it can be very healing. It can be healing not only for you, but it can be healing for others. It can be an inspiration for others.
Especially if you draw something, it's a picture that represents something. My pictures tend to get involved where I have pictures and things within pictures within things within things. So there's multiple layers there, you know, and sometimes that's how you can deal with something and rearrange the memory so it is more a learning aspect rather than a damaging aspect.
But it was a ball of rubber bands, and it would just sat in the head, and I took a picture of it. And so I have that hanging on my wall in my living room, and so I can look at that every so often when I do. I'm like, man, I know so many people just have that big ball of rubber bands in their, like, in their fake head, or the fake head that I made, you know. But in their actual head, it got all these rubber bands in there that you kind of have to start taking off. And then when I got to that point, I realized every time I went into therapy or went into dry out, maybe a couple more of those rubber bands came off. Maybe they didn't, but maybe a couple more did, and then the next time maybe a couple more did, and then the next time maybe 20 did, next time maybe 40. You know, you never know. I mean, it's just, you have to just work through it. You can't be scared of facing that, because I think that's kind of what I was. I was kind of scared of facing that because I knew what it was going to be, but it took me there anyway. It took me down that rabbit hole, you know, and it wasn't any fun, but it was necessary for me to have the rest of my life.
I had a dream one night of doing a checkerboard horse, and so I got up in the morning and started working on the checkerboard horse. I don't know. I just put it in there.
And got like purple dots on his butt.
Yeah. Just a little decoration, kind of like the native people do. They put those on their horses, so that's why I did that. And so I had put some other stuff down here, and I didn't like how it looked, so I'm in the process of taking that out. But otherwise, he's done. So, but it just came to me in a dream, and so I decided to do it.
So whatever artistic outlet you can find for yourself, it's a spiritual release. It's a trauma release. It's a tension release. Whatever has got me going that day, I can come in and I can turn some wood. Even if I turn tops. I was at the New Mexico State Fair on Sunday for 4 hours, and all I did was turn tops. Turn tops, and I would give them away to kids. And it was just so much fun. It was like, okay, next top, next kid, hey, you know. So it gives you a release, be it music. Even if you're playing somebody else's music, you're playing your version of it. Or if you do dance or glass or pottery or painting, you know, or photography. There are just so many art forms. And if the right art form's not out there, create it. Create something new.
So the thing I did with the crash of rhinos was take the collection of rhinos across time, and not just in one location. They're all in the same mountain range, you know, so as you look at the picture, the mountains age, you know, the water wears the rocks down, you know, the climate changes for each rhino having its own thing, and then the live rhinos are gone, and now you have mechanical rhinos, because the planet has now realized that they've screwed up the planet and they've got to do something, leave, you know, build cities different ways and stuff. You know, there's that realization point.
That's actually really cool. I was actually going for, this would be the crucifixion behind the devil. And Christ is trying to speak to us, but the devil gets in the way, and this is like a broadcast. You know, and you have kind of the aura of, you know, the halo kind of around Christ, and I have the words forgiveness, and down here, love and peace.
This one is a poodle I had. years ago, she carried that ball around all the time. So I would be sitting in my pottery studio trying to make something on the wheel, and she'd bring that ball up and drop it right in the middle of whatever I was working on. She was a very intense dog, so I was hoping I captured that, you know.
I did a piece with colored pencils. I used 104 dozen colored pencils in the base of it. Now I created it's more of an open form, so it had an opening in the top, but not like a bowl. It was more closed in, and then I created a lid for it and had a little finial, and both the lid and the finial were made out of colored pencils. And I was in the gallery that day, and there was a lady came in and looked at it, and she looked at it and asked me some questions and texted it to her husband and looked at it some more, and then she left. A few weeks later, I get a call. Don, your piece just sold. Will you ship it to her in Georgia? She wants to use it as an urn for her deceased cat. Sure, no problem. I created it. I didn't create it for her. I created it for what the two of us, the piece and myself, wanted to create. And she created the use. Great.
This pretty much encompasses everything. He's like carrying the country here, sort of, with the flag in his arm. He's run out of ammunition, so he's dropped this magazine. And he had a bullet go through his weapon, his rifle, so that's busted up. He's got a busted up hand here. He's got his dog tags on, and he's got Christ on his mind and God. And that's a hard thing to do when you're out doing the human dirty work.
Is that you?
No, that's not me. That's somebody who had it much worse than I did.
What would it be like if you were out in space? Of course, you're in a spacesuit, but you're untethered from the International Space Station or whatever it is, but you're out there, and there's nowhere to fall to, so you can't fall and get hurt. Well, when you look left, right, straight ahead, up, down, there is no end. There's just limitless possibilities. Go explore what they are. And you'll find so much more enjoyment to life. For me, I love when I create a piece, and if it sits there for a long time and doesn't sell, it's okay. The right person hasn't come along.
And one of our groups had a youth center in Kansas City that dealt with children who had been traumatized or abused. And during the tour for the presentation, he wanted, an art, and he wanted to show me a particular hallway, which starts out with the pictures the children draw when they first get there and they're still traumatized. The ones with the monsters and really shaky, and you can tell that it's kind of scary. And as you go down the hallway, there's more pictures as these children advance and learn to deal with the trauma and get over it, and the pictures change. So it's how you're feeling and your perspective that decides on what you can draw on the outer limits. And until you can actually see the brighter road ahead, you can't draw that road. And that's one of the things I have strong empathy with or for. And I do realize now, because it may not just be in your childhood that you get traumatized. You can get traumatized in a lot of areas, especially going through war, in combat. You know, when you're raised as a good Christian person that killing is wrong, and then you're taught to kill and that it's okay in that issue, that's a conflict. And you have to address that some way in your head to get over it. You know.
Thank you. Thank you.